In our first section of Chapter 1, we're going to talk about some basic terms for geometry. Our first one is a point. A point has no size and it's a definite location. So when I draw a point, it is something that I could put my finger on. It is one point in space. So if we have a drawing of a point, we have a point there and it is labeled here as point A. A point could also be in between two lines. So this point where my two lines come together, this could be a point also, point A right here. Our symbol for point A, so the way that we would write it if we wanted to say point A, is simply point A. Okay, our second term is a line. And a line, first of all, is straight. It has no thickness, it's just one line going in two directions, and it extends infinitely in the two opposite directions. That is what those arrows mean on the ends. It means it goes in either direction forever. And you can see it's got 2 points on our line. It's got point A and point B. So my symbol for this line, I'm going to use my points A and B. My symbol for a line is to draw a line with 2 arrows on top. So I could write this as line AB or as line BA. Now it's important to put those 2 arrows on top because, as we'll learn next, there's different types of lines, and this symbol with the arrows on both sides says I'm talking about the whole line. Now if I wanted to talk about just part of a line, that would be called a segment. Number 3 is a segment. And it has 2 endpoints. So here we have point C and point D. And for a segment, it's going to be very similar to the line. I'm going to use my 2 letters, CD. And CD with a segment on top looks like this, with no arrows. So this tells me that CD is just part of a line. It's a segment. I could also write it the other way, DC. Now, if I was talking about part of a line with 1 arrow on the side, that would mean I was talking about a ray. I have one endpoint. A is where that line ends, and then it keeps going past point B. When I write the symbol for a ray, there's only one way I could write this ray, and that would be to put A first. A is my endpoint, and B is where my line is going past. So when I write my symbol on top of my points, it's going to start at A and go past B. So B is going to have the arrow. Okay, so these are my 3 different types of lines. I've got the full line and then 2 different parts of a line, a segment and a ray. Okay, my last one here is called a plane. And a plane is a flat surface. So if you think about examples of a flat surface, that would be like a table. A table is a flat surface. That would all be in one plane. Or if you look at a box, like a tissue box, and you looked at one side of that tissue box, that's a flat surface. That would be a plane. So it's got a flat surface, no thickness, and extends in all directions. So when we draw a plane, it looks like this, where it looks like these are where the plane ends, but really these plane lines go out in all directions. It's not just this one little box. Okay, so when I want to label this plane, remember these capital letters here, A, B, C, those are all points inside my plane. So I could label this as plane ABC. So I need 3 points to name a plane. And that is why I labeled it as plane ABC. For a line, if we go back up to the line, we only need 2 points for a line. And if you think about it, to draw a line, you only need 2 points minimum for you to be able to draw that line. So we need to have 2 points to label our line, and we need 3 points to name our plane. Another way to name this plane is, if you notice this little x up here, that is a lowercase x. And we know that x is not a point on that plane because it's a lowercase letter. We only use uppercase letters to label our points. So if we have a lowercase letter in the upper corner, we can call it plane X. That X is just there to label the whole plane. Okay, this top part is just a review of what we talked about on that last page. We said that it takes 2 points to make a line and 3 points to make a plane. So those are important to remember, difference between a plane and a line. Now let's do an example. So this one says to name the points, lines, segments, rays, and planes shown below. So for our points, we are looking for all of our capital letters. And if we look at our drawing, I see we have a capital X, Y, and Z. Now that W in the corner, it's hard to tell with a W, but that is a lowercase w, so that is not a point on our plane. That's going to be used when we go to name our plane. Next, it's asking for lines. So we have one line, and to name our line, we need 2 points on that line, which are X and Y. And remember, our symbol for a line looks like this with 2 arrows on either side. So that is what I'm going to put on top of my points. And you can name that XY or YX. That is talking about the same line. Okay, the next piece is a segment. So a segment is part of a line and it has 2 endpoints. So our same points are going to be used, XY, but now instead of talking about the whole line, we're just going to talk about this little piece connecting our points. So XY is going to be our segment, and again we could flip that around, call it YX. As long as we have that line on top, that's our segment. Next we have a ray. So our ray could be either this piece, so if we fix that Y, we have starting at X and going past Y, that is one ray. And if you think of ray, if you have a hard time remembering what a ray is, think of a ray of sun. If we have a ray of sun, it starts at our sun and goes out in an infinite direction. We have a bunch of rays around the sun. So our ray is starting at X and going past Y. And we also could start at Y and go past X, since we have an arrow on this side too. So if we labeled that one, start at Y and go past X. Okay, and then our planes, we have one plane in this figure, but we could label that plane as plane, and we need 3 points to make a plane, so it would be plane X, Y, Z. And again, you can put those letters in any order, it doesn't have to be X, Y, Z. Or it could be plane W. Use that lowercase letter in the upper corner to name our plane. Okay? There are 2 more definitions we're going to go over in this section, and the first one is called collinear. So points are called collinear. Oops, that's right. Collinear if they can lie on the same line. So if we draw a picture down here, if we have a line and we put 3 points on that line. This is an example of collinear. They are all on one line. But if we put points like this on 2 lines, if we had an X up here and Y down here, these points are on 2 different lines, so these are non-collinear. Okay, so then we have a similar definition with coplanar. So points are called coplanar if they lie on the same plane. So here we have points A, B, and C. And in this example, they are all within one plane, so these are called coplanar. But if we look over here, A, B, and C are still all on the same plane, but now we have this point X outside of our plane. So points A, B, C, and X are non-coplanar.